Number 8. Emma Brown. On the 30th of January of 2021, 49-year-old Emma Brown was stabbed in the face 7 times by her 45-year-old boyfriend Stephen Gibbs. The couple had been together for 12 years and shared a home together in Wales. However, the dynamics in the relationship completely changed when Brown won £5.5 million, the equivalent of $6.7 million, in 2017. Gibbs became more jealous and insecure when the money allowed her to have more control over her own life. In the weeks prior to the attack, he had accused Brown of cheating on him and planted a tracking device in her car to keep tabs on her whereabouts. Brown grew tired of Gibbs's behavior and broke up with him, which triggered the attack. He was charged with attempted murder and is currently serving 20 years and 7 months in prison. Brown was left physically, emotionally, and psychologically damaged after the incident, but survived the attack. She suffers from numbness in the face, a drooping eyelid, and permanent blurred vision in one eye as a result of the ordeal. Number 7. Callie Rogers. Callie Rogers was Britain's youngest person to ever win the lottery. In 2003, at 16 years old, she won £1.8 million, the equivalent of $2.4 million, but ended up completely broke after spending more than £500,000 on homes, £550,000 on traveling, clothing and tattoos, giving £190,000 to friends and family, and gifting an additional £188,000 to previous boyfriends. She also spent a portion of her winnings on multiple cosmetic surgeries and drug-filled parties. In December of 2020, at the age of 33, she got behind the wheel of her car while high on illicit substances, along with her 31-year-old boyfriend, Jason Fearon. In addition to being under the influence, she had also just found out that she had blown her winnings and had to begin receiving government assistance to support her 4 children, a realization that was a hard pill to swallow after years of living a lavish lifestyle. The combination of drugs and being distraught caused her to veer off the road and crash. Shortly after, a police car driving by noticed Rogers' car, and when the officer went to investigate, Rogers and Fearon attempted to flee the scene. They were ultimately detained, but Rogers was pepper sprayed when she tried getting out of her handcuffs and demonstrating erratic behavior. She received a 22-month driving ban, was ordered to wear a tracking device, abide by a nighttime curfew for 11 weeks, and had to pay a total of £300 in fines for resisting arrest. Number 6. Abraham Shakespeare. 42-year-old Florida man Abraham Shakespeare went missing in 2009, 3 years after winning a $17 million lottery payout. Since then, people constantly tried to take advantage of Shakespeare for his money, which frustrated him. One of those people was 49-year-old Doris Donegan Moore, who approached Shakespeare under the guise of wanting to write a book about his life. While supposedly writing the book, Moore convinced Shakespeare to start a business with her, which was a ploy for her to take control of his finances. Once Moore became more involved with Shakespeare, his family and friends realized that they hadn't heard from him in a while. When they asked Moore about his apparent disappearance, her excuses ranged from him being on holiday in different places to being sick. She even used his phone to send text messages pretending to be Shakespeare in an effort to keep everyone at bay. Despite all of her tricks, his family and friends couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Shakespeare was illiterate, so the grammatically correct sentences and correctly spelled words that Moore had sent them pretending to be him only set off red flags. His family reported him missing in November of 2009 after not seeing him since April of that same year. This prompted a police investigation in which a good friend of Shakespeare's, Greg Smith, worked with investigators and played a significant role in finding out what happened to Shakespeare. Police were suspicious of Moore, and with Smith's help, they were able to set her up by having Smith and an undercover cop pretend that they would take the blame for the murder for a payment of $50,000. Moore fell for the trap, revealing where Shakespeare was buried and what the murder weapon was. On the 26th of January 2010, his body was found buried 9 feet underground below a concrete slab at Moore's home. It was later determined that Moore shot Shakespeare twice, which resulted in his death. A week later, Moore was charged with first-degree murder and finally convicted in December of 2012. She was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, as well as an additional 25-year sentence for possessing a gun in the course of a violent felony. Number 5. Michael Hill. Michael Hill, a 52-year-old man who won a $10 million lottery prize in 2017, is now serving a life sentence for fatally shooting his 24-year-old girlfriend, Kiona Graham, in 2020. Hill had allegedly discovered that Graham had secretly been texting other men. Upset by this, in July of 2020, while staying at a hotel in North Carolina, Hill shot Graham once in the back of the head while she slept, killing her. Hill then left her body there, where she was discovered the following day by a hotel maid. He later confessed to killing her and was found guilty of murder. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, with an additional sentence of 36 months for possession of a firearm by a felon. Number 4. Gregory Burch Jr. Gregory Burch Jr., a 20-year-old lottery winner, was fatally shot in his own home when masked intruders broke in demanding his wallet. In November of 2015, the young man won $430,000 in Georgia's state lottery, but he never got the chance to enjoy his good fortune. Just 2 months later, on the 21st of January 2016, 3 masked men entered the home he shared with his girlfriend, Jasmine Hendricks, and their children. The robbers held Burch at gunpoint, threatening to shoot him if he didn't hand over his money. Burch was cooperative and threw a pair of pants that contained his wallet over to the robbers to take. However, when they were somehow unable to find it, they shot him in both legs and fled the scene. Sadly, they returned just moments later and shot him an additional 5 times before fleeing for good. Hendricks was able to escape the home with their children to call for help, but Burch had already died on the scene. During their investigation, police arrested a total of 7 people who were involved in the deadly plot. And during the trial, prosecutors identified a motive for the shooting. Burch had used a portion of his winnings to buy gifts for all the children in the neighborhood, which bothered the perpetrators because they felt like he was showing off. All 7 people involved were convicted of malice murder, armed robbery, aggravated assault, and possession of a firearm during the commission of a crime. Number 3. Rouge Khan. On the 20th of July of 2012, 46-year-old businessman Rouge Khan mysteriously died after winning a $1 million lottery prize in Chicago. Initially, his death was ruled to have been from natural causes because there were no physical signs of trauma to his body. And at the time, the Cook County Medical Examiner's Office didn't perform autopsies on people over 45 years of age, unless their death was suspicious. However, after 6 months of non-stop protests from his family, medical examiners ran further tests on Khan's blood sample and discovered that Khan's true cause of death was a result of ingesting a lethal amount of cyanide. This was enough for the Chicago Police Department to launch a homicide investigation. They exhumed his body and ran further tests, but there wasn't enough evidence to make a solid conclusion as to how Khan was poisoned. To this day, nobody has been charged in the murder. Today's topic was requested by Signia and L.I. Baker. If you have any other topics you'd like to learn about, subscribe and let us know in the comments section below. Number 2. Jeffrey Dampier. On the 26th of July of 2005, Jeffrey Dampier, a man who won $20 million in the Illinois State Lottery in 1996, was killed by his sister-in-law in Florida. Dampier was generous with his money, especially when it came to his wife, Crystal Jackson, and her family. He had no problem buying them expensive gifts or lending money when it was needed. When his sister-in-law, Victoria Jackson, fell on some hard financial times, he was happy to help. However, nobody knew that there was another reason he was quick to help her. They were having an affair. Victoria was also dating another man by the name of Nathaniel. Nathaniel learned about Dampier's lottery win and let greed get the best of him, convincing Victoria to help him carry out a plan to gain control of the money. That's when Victoria called Dampier, lying about having car troubles. When he showed up, Nathaniel forced Dampier into a van at gunpoint, tied his hands together, and repeatedly hit him with the butt of the gun as he demanded what remained of his winnings. Dampier wouldn't cooperate, and Victoria, who was driving the van during the ordeal, switched places with Nathaniel in an attempt to talk Dampier into handing the money over. When that didn't work, Nathaniel became frustrated and threatened to shoot Victoria if she didn't shoot Dampier. She shot him in the back of the head and killed him. The couple ditched the van with Dampier's body inside on a deserted road, but it was only a matter of time before his body was found and the couple was connected to his murder. Both were eventually sentenced to life in prison. Number 1. Ryan McKechnie. In February of 2014, a 31-year-old Irishman named Ryan McKechnie was found fatally stabbed in his own home. In 2012, McKechnie won £40,000, the equivalent of about $50,000 in the lottery. He was a former drug addict, working hard to maintain his sobriety, especially while raising 3 children on his own after his wife had died in 2010 from drug-related causes. McKechnie was generous with his winnings and often gave money to friends and family. Eventually, all his money was gone, and he began struggling to support himself and his kids. It's unclear who was watching the children at the time, but police received a call that nobody had heard from McKechnie in 3 days. They went to his home and broke the door down, and once inside, they found McKechnie stabbed to death. Police believe that someone thought that McKechnie still had money stashed away somewhere, tried to get it from him, but ultimately stabbed him when he couldn't hand anything over. An arrest was made in the case, and 37-year-old William Russell was charged with murder. However, after insisting that the act was in self-defense, a jury declared Russell not guilty of murder, clearing him of the charge. To this day, it is unclear who killed the lucky yet unlucky winner. Thanks for watching. If you would get $1 million for every year that you shaved off your lifespan, then how many years would you shave off, if any? Let us know in the comments section below.